You know who it is? With Mr. Dakota. Say hi, Dakota.
Howdy do.
Is that howdy do or howdy do do?
Howdy do. Single do. No double do.
Oh, okay. There you go. Well, God, you notice my phone goes crazy behind me now. Oh my goodness. So, yeah, we'll just jump right into this and say hello to everybody, and welcome back and glad to see y'all here. And if this is your first time here, make sure you subscribe. And if you've already subscribed, welcome to the family. Welcome to JJ's PC Builds. And my veteran subscribers, as always, much love to you for all that you do, helping support the channel. Today, we're going to have a little bit of a talk about the 49 the nvidia 4090, the 4080, the 4070 Ti. We're going to have a little bit of a talk about, and also too the leaking of the 5500 X3D and the 5700 X3D. A little bit of a leaking there as well. And at the end, well, if we got, we just, chit chat, like, do some, follow ups and stuff like that. But we're going to start off with the going to video cards. I'll go ahead and just type it in. I know y'all can't see what I'm doing, so we'll get you there soon enough.
Try to get that action camera.
Okay, let's see. Let's go ahead and just plug it in here. Erased. And we'll pull it off there. Okay. And we'll put it over here. All right. Well, what do you think about the 4090 being erased from China there, Dakota?
Honestly, it doesn't surprise me.
Well, how many people do you really think bought the 4090s?
In China, probably a lot.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Bitcoin mining was pretty big in China. I don't know if it still is, and I don't know if it is enough. Like Bitcoin mine, I don't exactly know the date Bitcoin mining fell out of relevance, so I don't know if it was before or after the release of the 40 series.
It was before the release.
Oh, okay. Well, then maybe they didn't sell a lot in China.
No, they really didn't sell much. Well, actually, when you look at it, there's because of the AI experience and all that. The thing is this, that with the 4090s, that nvidia tried to push them over there before the cutoff date on the 17th of November. So and when the cutoff date happened, then all of a sudden China started pulling them out from advertisements from their web pages. So basically they're not going to be selling the 4090s over there anymore.
Yay, more for us.
Well, not necessarily true, because the thing is that with the 4090 now, nvidia temporarily stopped the production of the 4090s all the way around.
That's true.
So they stopped doing production of them. So whatever they have, whatever you can find left online, which I can tell you is not much. I can tell you that right now. There's not much that you're going to be able to find out there. A lot of places are sold out. So that's something to think about too. Now, what happens with the 4080 Super? Now, that's going to be another thing that's going to be coming up. They're going to use the same die that they used for the 4090 for the 4080 Super and cut it down a
That
little?
yeah, I could see that.
Yeah, that's what I'm for saying. But what they're saying is they're utilizing the same die that they did for the 4080 to make the Super, which doesn't make sense to me. It how can you how can you use the same how can you use the unless you're using the same PCB or the same unless you're using the same graphics
They
card.
they have ways of cutting down video cards. They've done it in the past.
Well, I understand I can see them cutting it down from a 4090, but
Yeah.
I can't, from what I'm gathering, what people were telling me, that they were taking the 4080 and they were boosting it up to the super part.
Oh.
Yeah, there's a big difference in that. They were doing it the opposite way. And I can't really fathom them doing that, truthfully.
Yeah. Yeah, neither can I really.
I mean, but that's the word that was going around, you know. So I'm not seeing how they're going to accomplish that. I can see
They
if
have their ways.
I can see if it's the 4090 and they cut it down to a 4080 Super, then I can see that. That's just by cutting the cores off and lowering the amount of VRAM that's on there, going from 24 to 16. Which now, if I remember right, isn't the 4080 16 gigs of VRAM?
Uh 40, 80, 16 gigs. I think so.
Yeah, I thought so too. You know what would have been even better if they were going to do the Super Series? If they would have took that 4080 16 gig and went up from the 16 to a 20.
Okay.
And have 20 gigabytes of VRAM on the 4080 Super. That would have been, for the price point. And I did see some word going around that the price point they're going to be doing the 4080 Super at is supposed to be a little less, like $200 less than the 4080 itself. And that's the reason why they're discontinuing the 4080 and the 4070 Ti and taking it off the market, is because they want to lower the price of the Super Series to where it costs $1,000 to get the 4080 Super. And the
That's crazy.
4070 Ti Super, they were going to do at $800 instead of it being around 949 for the 4070 Ti.
Yeah.
Now the 4070 Super, they wanted to do 50 to $60 higher than MSRP on the 4070. But there's between the 4070 and the 4070 Super, there's a 10% more. You get 10% more power out of the 4070 Super. So to justify the price of the 4070 Super for 10% more, it everybody's going to say it's not going to justify it because
Well, it seems like every single one of the 40 series cards that came out, people had complaints about it. So I have a
yeah,
feeling that these aren't going to come out real well either.
no, I already had a feeling that some people are going to think it's dead in the water. The only ones that are really going to buy it are the ones that really want to spend that money. You know,
Yeah.
those are only going to be the really ones that want to buy it. You know, the ones that can't afford it, they're going to look at it. It's going to be dead in the water to them. And that's pretty much, we come back to that discussion of 72%.
Yeah.
So that's going to make the Super Series dead in the water unless they can get the prices down to where they're reasonable. Now, if they put the 4070 Super at $500, that would that would totally shut out AMD with their 7800 XT. That 4070 Super would shut out AMD completely.
Yeah. I mean, if they could, we'll see. Nvidia hasn't been great with their pricing.
No, they haven't. I mean, the power of their cards is one thing, but if they want to make a statement to, and show the community they really stepping up to the plate, then they're going to have to make the prices at least down into the reasonable range. I mean, I
Yeah.
can see $500 for a 4070 Super. I can see $500. And like the 4070 Ti Super is only 5% higher, 5 or 6% higher than the 4070 Super. You're only getting, you know, between they're only keeping it between 5 and 10% between each one of the cards. So with you trying to jack up the price going from the 4070 Super to the 4070 Ti Super going up $200 for 5%, nobody's going to pay that for 5%. No way.
That's fair.
I mean, if they do pay that, then, they got deep pockets, but for the performance wise, I can't see that. I really can't. No way. I mean, it's not to say they're not going to be great cards. They could be, for somebody that doesn't have the card, then yeah, I can see it's going to be a great card for them, if that's what they want to purchase. But, if it's, card for an enthusiast, they're going to get the card, they're going to test the card out, they're going to see what it can do, and then they're going to go up on eBay and they're going to try to sell it. You know, because it's not going to satisfy them. You know, it's like the AMD with the RX 7800 XT. People started to run into issues with that card. And the issues they were running into was black or blue screening, you know, because the drivers weren't set correctly. And then, they were supposed to be getting RDNA 3 and, they were getting RDNA 1 off of that one game, and, it was going back and forth with AMD. AMD was, keeping everybody on the string for like what? What Starfield opened up?
I know it was for a while.
Yeah.
I wasn't tracking it though, so I don't exactly know.
Hey Jerry, how's it going? Um, what kind of insight were you looking for? Oh, well, did you try Well, then maybe it could be that your memory for your motherboard on the 7800X 3D might be set too high, maybe become unstable. So you could probably got to reset it in the BIOS. And I'm going to give you inside. If you know, I would turn off that what do you call it? That new PBO kind of curve thing that they have, the Expo. I would turn that off. A lot of people saying, well, if you turn it off, you're going to lose performance on the table. But actually, if actually, really, you won't, because you can go under the PBO curve and you can put a negative offset on it, and that'll bring down your temperatures to a reasonable amount. And then when you run your 4080, you should be able to run your 4080 to the moon. Well, that's what I'm saying. They're still saying that they're having instability with the Expo. Even with the 7800 X3D, I mean, if you're running the 7800X, right? Not the X3D, but the X, then Expo might work, but I'll tell you what, it's going to drive the temperature of that processor up to about 90, 95 to about 100 degrees C. You know, so if you're looking to get the temperature down, I always say undervolt. I always say go into your PBO curve, set it to a negative 20, and see what it does there, you know, and see if it runs your processor more smoothly. And that's pretty much what you need to do, is get it smoothed out a little bit. But with the extra cache and stuff, they're not the 7800X3D with that extra cache. The thing is this: you can't use as much power as you would with the 7800X, you know, because it's designed with that extra 3D cache, you know, that doesn't accept a lot of frequency, a lot of power. So, well, if they're 50 and 60 on the CPU and GPU, then I think what it is that Expo seems to be the problem with the. I think with the Expo, if you turned off the Expo and you manually set your you manually set your system RAM, to its max potential, when you bought it, if it's like 5200 megahertz, right? And its CL is, well, let's say it's 5200 megahertz. So you set the Infinity Fabric right up to the manufacturer's specs. You'll probably get a little bit better performance than trying to use an Expo, which is overdriving your system memory. So that's what I think is happening, is overdriving the system memory, causing your instability. So, give me a second. I'm trying to read everybody. I'm not too experienced in adjusting anything. That was my first build, and I hardly could go and enable Expo. Well, like they said, um, people were saying that their processors were burning up because they enabled Expo, and they were supposed to have done that BIOS update for the fix, Make sure your BIOS is up to date as well, because if it's not and they did that fix, then that could be running your instability as well. Do you think the 5800X3D will go down in price or go out of stock? Good question. Well, I doubt it's going to go down in price anytime soon because of the performance. It'll probably run out of stock before it goes down in price. It might go down a little bit because of the the Black Friday deals, but as far as actually staying down at a stable low price, um I still think it's going to be staying up around 300 for another year or so.
Yeah, I was gonna say I was just over here looking at it on Amazon. It's $322.93
Right.
for the overall pick on Amazon.
Right. It's 5800X 3D is a monster. No matter what anybody says, compared to the 7800X 3D, the 5800X 3D is a monster. Even on DDR4, you know.
I'm pretty sure that's the processor my buddy just got.
Yeah. Do you think maybe being on Windows 11 could have been the issue for it restarting and freezing, because it kept trying to troubleshoot upon restart, but it would encounter issues with Windows troubleshoot? Could be a possibility. I heard a lot of people having problems with their Windows 11 running the AM5 series, different types of processors and stuff like that, of freezing issues and stuff like that because of the scheduling, Windows 11 scheduling. I'm still on Windows 10, okay? And I don't have any problems on Windows 10. Back before Windows 11 was released, they did all the benchmarks and stuff on Windows 10. And Windows 10 still benchmarks higher than Windows 11 on some games. So, but it's because when you have a platform, okay, when you have a platform that's seasoned out, that's been tested and retested and tested and tested and tested over and over by many people over a period of years, it's been perfected. So if it's a perfected platform, that's a platform you don't want to walk away from. You know, not right now. Not until they perfect the next new thing, the next platform. Like Windows 11, until they get it perfected, I'm not going to Windows 11. That's basically the way I look at it. You know, I still think
Yeah,
Windows 10 is better than Windows 11.
you have till 2025 to make that decision.
Yeah, exactly. You got till 2025, you know. And if I see Windows 11 perfected, then I'll go that way. But I don't really see it going that way.
Well, even if it isn't perfected, you probably still, if they drop support, it's going to be a security nightmare.
Yeah, well, doesn't matter which way you look at it. No matter what operating system, it's going to be either Windows 10 or Windows 11. It's still going to be a security nightmare. Okay. Windows, from time of Windows 95 all the way up to now, has always been a security nightmare. So, going from Windows Defender, with having Windows Defender on there, pretty much that it just rolled over from operating system to operating system. They just improved it here or there just
Yeah.
because of the Trojans and the bugs and everything else. But Windows 11 is not perfected totally yet, and it's got more bugs than whistles. So I just don't foresee, Windows 11 for at least another, I could say, 6 months, having, something that's, a little bit more stable. especially if you're using a processor with 16 cores, a 16 core processor, and the scheduling only can schedule up to 8. See the problem?
No, yeah, no, I agree.
You know, so that's what some people got to understand. I mean, if you're running an 8 core, 16 thread processor, okay, and understand that. If you're running an 8 core, 16 thread processor, the scheduling is going to work fine. But when you go up in cores like 12 to 16 and 18 and 96 cores and stuff like that, yeah, Windows is going to have a big scheduling problem, and it still hasn't been fixed. you know
What do you think that is?
it's still dealing with the fact of the switching between lanes, that
Mm-hmm.
when you got so many lanes, it has to switch here, there, everywhere. They're not they haven't designed the motherboard well enough to accept that extra bits of more lanes that it needs to kind of coincide to because you're trying to take the frequency and you're trying to pass it back and forth. It's like if you're playing catch with somebody and you're throwing the ball back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. But now in between the two, you add about 1,000 more people in between. Now try to catch the ball.
I
See,
could do it. I'm built different.
yeah. Yeah, but that's pretty much what the issue is right now. Is there's so many roadblocks that they put in the midst of that you're trying to send from your processor to the coprocessor and tell the coprocessor to branch off into like 128 different ways, and take care of your graphics card, take care of all the PCIe lanes for um, your your SSD cards, and take care of all the PCIe lanes for your branch off for your internet, your keyboard, your mouse. You're telling it to branch off so many different ways, but that's not how the coprocessor is actually set to go. It's only in going one direction. It's not looking biodirect. It's not going biodirectional.
Yeah.
So if it was more biodirectional on all the lanes instead of a few lanes, then it'd be a different story. But you got your power that travels through there, your 12-volt power, your 5-volt power, your 3.3 that goes through some of those lanes. So it kind of limits, its ability. Let's see. I'm catching up with the chat, everybody. Give me a second. Um, um, well, I look at it this way, Augie. Um, it's not so much keeping a Windows 10 machine maxed out, with the 5800X3D. Even if I mean, the 5800X3D is an AM4 platform, so it's designed with that motherboard to do its functioning. So, but it doesn't mean it's the best of the best of the best. I understand that. That's where the AM5 series comes in with all the new processors that they got. They got many of processors made. I mean, they got the 7500F. They got the was it 75? I think they got a 7500. They got a 7500F. For what reason? I have no idea. They got the 7600. They got the 7700, 7700X. You get your non-X, you get your X, and you get your X3D. Okay, you got many different processors out there. What can run neck to neck with the 5800X3D is, a 7800X3D. So, but as far as being on a like a B550 or a B570 or a B550 motherboard, a 5800X3D is still going to keep up there with some of the best, but it doesn't limit the amount of lanes that it needs to survive. Even if it's on Windows 10 or Windows 11, it's basically they're both of those platforms are okay platforms, when it comes to basic gaming. But when it comes to like extreme gaming and stuff like that, yeah, Windows 11, a lot of people are talking about it. Windows 11 with its scheduling is kind of, throttling back the amount of performance that you can get with some of those high end games. What do you think, Dakota?
To be honest, I don't know much about this topic.
Oh, you don't?
So,
Oh,
no.
oh, okay. Well, we're gonna have to get you on a topic that you are, but
Well, I missed part of the conversation too because I was talking with my wife. So,
oh, that's fine. That's fine. That's understandable. But well, it's a matter of this. It comes back again, like I said, with Windows 10 or Windows 11, you know, you could use Windows 10 all the way up to 2025. Okay, there's nothing wrong with using it. It's still going to give you the same level of performance that you're going to use when it comes to Windows 11. Okay, if you got a system, a computer system that only goes up to Windows 10, then,
and that's the thing too is some computers only go to Windows 10.
yeah, basically. Like, but you got to look at, I got an 8th gen Intel PC that goes to Windows 11, which I got Windows 11 on it. I got my sleeper build over here, which is AM4 series. It's a B450 motherboard, with the 5600G. That's got Windows 11 on it, but that doesn't mean it's a dead platform. It still runs.
Yeah.
Catching up with the chat, everybody. Give me a second. um, um, well, if you set your BIOS settings back to factory settings, and it clears up your issues, then that basically means that you have something overclocked. Usually means that you either had something turned the wrong way or something turned the right way. But that usually comes back to with the AM5 series, a lot of people are still saying, you know, that when it comes to um, the that one little point, you know, with it having XMP, let's say just XMP. They turn on the XMP. What happens is that they turn around, they get crashing, blue screening, and everything else. Is because they turn on the PBO, you know, precision boost overdrive, and they turn on XMP at the same time. Usually causes crashing. You can use it either one or the other. But if you put everything back to stock, then, and run it at stock and see what you got there. And then, it's called testing. You test it at stock, see what it runs at, write down your numbers, and then you keep moving forward until you get to that right position. So me, I test at stock, and I test when I undervolt like I do. I undervolt my processor to keep the heat down, keeps my processor running at 60 degrees Celsius. And my video card doesn't go over 60 degrees Celsius. So I never have a problem with any of that. Let's see. Okay, let's see. I have a 5600G, so I am already limited to PCIe 3.0, and I have a 4070, and I'd like to add a PCIe USB port network card, but pretty sure that would split my already gimped 3.0 PCIe lanes. Well, that depends on if you're getting X16 or X8. Okay, now I'm going to give you a helpful hint on this. I have the Ryzen 5. Well, I can tell you that. I got the 5600X 3D. This is the 5600X 3D I got from Micro Center. I have over here, down here, I have the 5600G. Now, I found it better to run the 5600G off of a B550 motherboard. I got the Asus Strix B550 dash A. I ran that with the RTX 4070, and that was the best thing I've ever did. I mean, the only difference I seen between the 5700X and the 5600G was about maybe 70 FPS difference. That's pretty much it. Pretty much it will run just as much as you want it to run, and it'll get the performance you want to get. So I really, if you're running a B450 motherboard, yeah, you're going to run into the PCIe 3.0 discrepancy. You're going to run into that discrepancy because the B450 motherboard will give you the 3.0 lanes. But I noticed something weird about when I hooked it up on the B550, that it was actually going PCIe 4.0 X16. So what hinders it, I think, is because it's running off the B450. So when I went to B550, it switched everything up. My RAM megahertz have gone from 6100 down to 4800 megahertz. Is that too? Yeah, that is way significant. Way significant. You should never ever go down, Jerry. You should never go down that amount unless you got either problems with the processor or you got problems with um, the motherboard itself not being capable to keep up at that level. But you should never have that kind of problem going down from 6,100 to 4,800. It should never slide down that far. I mean, just to be honest with you, I don't see why it would slide down that far. Truthfully, how do I check? Oh, I went to the 4070 over the 7800 XT and gave up VRAM for VR performance for games like DCS, World, Flight Aim. Okay, are you going for more rasterization, or Augie, were you going for rasterization, or were you going for ray tracing? Which way were you going with that? Just let me know that. Trying to catch up with the chat, everybody. And let's see. Let's see. CPU-Z is a great little program. I do agree with that. I got that
I
myself.
agree with that too.
Yeah. That will show you the memory and the CL settings. It doesn't show you everything you need to know, the fine details. It'll show you all the way up to the max of that memory stick, but it won't show you beyond that. If you're looking for the cast timings and stuff like that, it won't show you beyond what it shows you the max of that that memory stick. So let's see. I wish I was next to Micro Center. Yeah, me too. It took me a total of 12 hours round trip just to get this thing. Just to get this thing right here. It took me 12 hours to get that. It was like pulling my hair out by the time I got home. I was like dead to the world.
Hey man, dedication for the craft.
Yeah, true. Dedication for the craft. Okay, step one, get the installer for CPU-Z. Okay. Yeah. Like I said, if you're gonna test, there's the program OCCT. There's that program too. That's good for testing. If you want to test individual stuff, like for the test the amount of using up the large amount of memory of your system RAM. If you want to test it all the way down to, let's say you got 64 gigs, you want to test it all the way down to, just leaving like maybe 500 megs on there left to see what your system does. OCCT can take it all the way up to all the way to the end. And also too, with your VRAM, if you want to test your VRAM on your video card, it does that as well. You can pull it all the way down to 99.99%. I know I've already done it. I made a video on it too. Just let y'all know that. Yes. Undervolting does do, it does work better for you when you do undervolt. You hear a lot of reviewers, they tell you this, that when it comes to, wanting to save the heat on your processor or the heat on your GPU, then yeah, it's good to undervolt. Especially if you got an overheating issue or you're using an air cooler that you can't control totally the temperatures. So to get them under control, then you can undervolt to keep them under control. Basically, I'm using a small air cooler for my processor, and I undervolt. It keeps it at 60C continuous, not continuous, but when I go to play games or push it up to the the fine lines, it doesn't seem to go over 60. Might hit 62C maybe one or twice, but that's pretty much it. I don't really see it really pushing it hard. So okay, well, what you could do with that, Augie, is you put With that, see, I'm gonna be honest with you guys. My monitors, they run at 60 hertz. Okay. I've always used the simple rule of thumb. It doesn't matter what hertz you put it at. You think it's going to run faster, and it's not going to inch you to that little fine line mark of getting you that much more onto your screen, much more pixelization onto your screen. If you're running 1440p at 60 hertz, you know, I don't foresee it ever giving you a problem. If you're worried about FPS, that's part of the texture manipulation from going from your video card to your monitor. That has nothing to do with your FPS. What has to deal with your FPS, it's what oh I'll be right there in a minute. See, now I got the dog going nuts. You hear that? She's vicious.
I do. I hear that. She sounds vicious.
Hey. Calm down. Calm down. There's nobody there. Go to bed. Go to bed. There ain't nobody.
Undervolting doesn't
I'm
mean
going to tell y'all,
always.
give me a minute and I'll be right back. Give me 1 minute and let me solve this really quick. Okay. And no, I won't throw the dog out the window.
Oh. To answer your question, I don't know if ray tracing 4070 offers matters to me much, but I took advice. Check specific game titles. I tell people to do that all the time. Good. And it favored the nvidia or AMD 4070 won over. All right. Undervolting doesn't mean losing performance always. Lowering temps can keep its clock speeds higher. That is true. $90C. Should I undervolt?
Okay, I'm back. I'm sorry, everybody. I had to get the dog under control. Well, Dakota, you take a couple questions. So
that's what I'm looking at right now. I'm trying to see.
Yeah, I'm gonna let Dakota take a couple questions.
Okay, GPU should stay below 100C under full load to be safe, although most recent AMD GPUs hit their max temperature of 110 Celsius. Whew. So yeah, you're with your RX 6700 or 7600 hitting 90C. That should be safe. That's within parameters.
I always kept a rule of thumb: never go over 84 degrees Celsius. Because
I've kind of been on both sides. I mean, you've seen my cooling setups. I've kind of been on both sides of things.
Right.
If it's within what the product tells me is okay, if the company's telling me it's okay to be at 110C, then I'm okay with it.
So you're okay with the fact of having a processor that's running at 220 degrees Fahrenheit boiling water.
Well, we're talking about a graphics card here.
Yeah,
we're talking about the.
Well, even with the graphics card, you're talking about it because what do you think the melting point of plastic is?
I'm okay with it if AMD is okay with it. It's their product.
Yeah, true. I understand that, but
like obviously, I'd prefer a cooler computer, and to be honest, downclocking has more than just heat benefits. Like if you downclock a little bit, get the CPU. Oh, hard to Google. 7600. Oh, did I look at? Okay, give me a second here. Gosh, AMD's naming scheme is just terrible. Are you talking about the? Oh. Yeah, yeah. From what I read there, Augie, I'm pretty sure it literally says here. GPU say, yeah, it literally says modern AMD GPUs, so it's referring to the graphics card. So yeah, according to this, its max temperature is 110 Celsius. I would still aim to keep it between 90 and 100 though. Like obviously, if it's hitting 110, you need better fans or something in your system.
You need some Ellen too.
Hey, enjoy your dinner, Augie.
You need some extra freon with your your graphics card.
Just throw the whole PC in the freezer. You'll be fine.
Yeah, basically, and just hope that nothing shorts out in the midst of that. Don't do it. Don't do it.
Which yeah. Don't. That's bad advice. Don't do that. I'm going to someday. I'm gonna build a computer and just see how long it'll last before it dies.
Okay, Jerry. Now the answer you're looking for with that is if your Expo is disabled, right? Well, not yeah. If your Expo is turned off, like let's say, I'm not sure what kind of motherboard you have. I'm gonna tell you this. I'm not sure what kind of motherboard you have, so it's kind of hard for me to give you precise because of but there is a place that says for your memory frequency, and there is a place for your infinity fabric that's in the same spot. I'm not sure if you got Asus, I'm not sure if you got MSI, or oh, you got NZXT 650 B650E. Oh, I to be honest with you, I would have to look that up to see what kind of bias they have, to see where everything's located in the BIOS. I couldn't tell you. On an Asus motherboard, I could tell you. But with NZXT, I really don't have that kind of information on me. So, just to be honest with you, and I don't want to steer you in the wrong direction. So if I had that like that kind of information on me at this point, then I can tell you. But I can look it up and see what I can find. So we can look it up and see what we can find. Let's see. And I'm doing that right now while we're talking about it. So we'll look it up. NZXT. Is there any other questions you're going to be looking at there, Dakota?
No, I mean he asked about temperature there, and I feel like we gotten that pretty much covered.
Well, no, I was just jumping ahead a little bit on the you know a $319 motherboard. Damn, they're getting expensive.
That's hey, I got that NZXT Z790, and that was about what I paid for mine.
Yeah, I mean, it's got the Wi-Fi 6E, um, digital RGB fan and fan control. It's got a 16 plus 2 plus 1 power phase. VRMs are really good. I mean, that's really good with with the VRMs, you definitely ain't got nothing to worry about as far as power. Got, you know, let's see.
I'm gonna put an invite link for the Discord server in the chat. Is that all right?
That's fine, man. That's fine.
All right. You're not gonna be able to hop on the call, but you could post it. Like, take a picture of it and post it.
Yeah. Well, what do you mean?
Jerry Celeste, maybe I could hop into your Discord call and show you the bio screen.
Ooh. That might be
I don't know. He might.
That might be a little difficult.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
I'm gonna have to do that maybe once a week. Catch somebody, you know, with that wants to hop in and, you know, get them in on the call for a little while, you know, and pick their mind and see what's up. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, to be honest, I mean, when people have questions, it'd be kind of cool, like, to watch you help people out with questions, and they can communicate to you via just the chat, or the like you guys can chat with each other on screen, and I think it'd make it for an interesting watch.
Oh, that's cool, Machine. Tell her thank you.
Machine's wife is a hero. One step closer.
So maybe next week when we get ready to do this again, you know, we can get you in on the call. Okay.
I'm pretty sure I did, Jerry. It's the Dakota Lee profile. It's like 3 comments above yours that you just posted. I can post it again. Let's see here. Here's his PC channel. Drop down. Invite people. Copy.
Yes, there is a new 3050. I think it's
Control
8 gigabyte. Going from it's supposed to be from 4 to 8, I think. If you're wondering, machines, unless they're going from 8 to 16, you know, who knows what they got cooking in their brains.
Can you? Okay, yeah, you can highlight. I was just making sure he could highlight my comment so that he can copy and paste it. To make sure it still works. We enter. Taking away to Discord. JJPB builds. Nice. All right.
Did you already send the link?
Yeah, I've posted it twice now.
What in
the chat?
The YouTube chat?
Yeah. It's like a temporary link that you can, if you go to your Discord and then you go down to, you click the little arrow next to the name of your server. It has a little highlighted purple thing that says invite people. You click on that, and then there's a copy link at the bottom, and you just copy it. It expires in 7 days. It won't pop up. Are you copying and pasting it correctly? Highlighting everything? So you drag your mouse cursor, you click right behind the H, and you drag your mouse, lights it all up blue, and then you right click on the blue highlighted phrase, and you click copy, or you hit Control C on your keyboard, and then you go up and you go to the little search bar at the top of the screen.
Hey, Dakota.
What?
Look what I put in the chat.
Where'd you...
The Discord channel.
Okay.
I renewed and put a new invite in there.
Oh, nice. Okay.
So, if that's what y'all are wondering, there you go. We got y'all in there now. So,
all right, we just had somebody else join.
Yeah, I know. I'm doing it right in front of y'all, so y'all were making sure I was getting the invites. Yeah, I did it right there in front of everybody. So, this invite right here will get you in the Discord channel, so you should be all good. What else? Oh, that and like I said, now just to give you all reminders.
Oh, yeah.
They're still leaking about the 5500X3D. Now, that's the AM4 platform, not the AM5. They're going to be coming out with that and the 5700X3D. Now, it's starting to look like it might come true. Now, they're getting more of the rumors back that that they're talking about doing it for the AM4 platform. So I don't foresee that the AM4 platform's totally dead just yet, like everybody's claiming. I really don't. So now the AM5 series, I know a lot of people put out a lot of money for the AM5 series. You know that, Dakota?
Yeah.
A lot of people put out money for that series. But AMD says, you know what? We're not done just yet with the AM4 series. So, yeah.
So interesting to me.
What's that?
That they're putting out more chips for the AM4.
No, actually, they're catching up. See, like I discussed that with you earlier. I said, what they're doing is they're taking some of the stock that they're sitting on, instead of it going to waste and going to a landfill, they're taking and they're repurposing it. Like if they got extra 5800 X3Ds, they're repurposing them, making 5700 X3Ds, or they're making 5500, or like they did with the 5600 X3D, they're making 5500 X3Ds. I mean, they're definitely not putting their product into the landfill. So
which is good, yeah.
Yeah. That's kind of saving the Mother Earth, and they're kind of putting a little of that extra money into their pocket too. You really have to understand that. So,
Hey, I fully support it.
CES, yeah, that's coming in January the 8th. I think CES is January the 8th. It's coming. It's going to be in Las Vegas, Nevada. So,
are you going to do it?
What? Go out there to Las Vegas?
Yeah.
Oh my god, man. That's definitely that's about as long as the drive it took me to get to Micro Center.
But it would be to one of the biggest tech events. It'd be kind of sick.
Yeah, I'd have to think about it though. I'll let you know though.
All right.
I'd have to think about it. Yes,
It would be a lot of driving.
and machine, yes, I would have to do it live because guess what? I got a device now, and if you all go to my homepage, well, if y'all go to the JJ's PC Build homepage channel on YouTube and go all the way to the bottom, the mobile channel is there. I put one video on it just to test it out, see what I'm going to like about it. But when I'm live, I can do live in the mobile now. So that means, I can take y'all along with me. So it's a little bit easier. I couldn't take my whole computer system at the house with me. That was kind of a difficult kind of thing. I live in California. If that's where you're wondering where I live at, I live in California. And the Super Series. The Super Series, talking about the Super Series for NVIDIA. That's what they're going to be doing in January. They're going to be announcing, I think, 2 of them. I think they said they're going to announce 2 Super Series GPUs. NVIDIA did. So we're looking forward to that. But if we don't go, and travel out to Las Vegas, we can do it live here, and we can you know stream off of the stream for CES from here. We can do that as well, and we can have discussions about it and what they got cooking. We can make a whole little program out of it right here on the channel for everybody to actually see. So, yep, I can stream it from YouTube. Now I can CES, I can stream right here from my channel. So just to let you know that. Well, I went into the BIOS and found the frequency. I adjusted it to 6,000 megahertz with no expo. But did you adjust the Infinity Fabric? To 3,000 megahertz. Because if it's still at 2,000, what's going to happen is you're missing a whole 1,000 megahertz. Because remember, your RAM is double-sided DINs. Okay. Send a picture and right in Discord, and I'll have a peek at it, and I'll let you know what I think about it. Because where you adjusted the frequency for your memory, the Infinity Fabric should be right there as well. So, I did a video on setting up your memory on a couple videos of mine, to where you get, the oh, my brain is just not here today. Oh my goodness. Where you get the memory timing and you get the Infinity Fabric. Okay. So let me have a peek. Yes, you all gonna see it right here. So we're gonna peek. Okay, so you got that set at 6,000. Um, the dram frequency. What do you have the dram timing configuration set at? That's going to be the question. The dram timing configuration. That would be something that you would think about really quick too. Let's
The
see.
Infinity fabric is set to 2000 megahertz.
You see it?
Yeah, it's underneath DRAM VPP voltage at the very bottom. Like
Okay.
it's five up from the
Yeah, I
bottom.
see it. I got you. The Infinity Fabric frequency is set at 2000 megahertz. Now, what did I say? Did I not say it was set at 2000? Sorry, I'm still got the flu, guys. So, okay, go take it up about to 2500 megahertz and see how that runs for you. So take it up about to 2500. Okay. I say 2500 for a specific reason because I'm not sure what memory type you have. Okay. Well, worry about the Infinity Fabric. If it's set at 2000, set it up to 2500 and see how it works for you. And if it's really working for you, then you might be able to push it to like, keep keep creaking it up to 3000. Okay. Now your Infinity Fabric should be running one half of your actual outputted processor, your memory speed. So if your memory speed's at 6,000, your Infinity Fabric should be at 3,000. Okay. Just mess with those two right now and keep everything else on auto and see what happens. You should be fine. I mean, it's not, it should boost your timings up when it comes to your gameplay. It should boost your timing up, but it's like this. I'm gonna give you an example. I'm running 3200 megahertz. My Infinity Fabric runs 1600, one half of the 3200. When it shows up on GPU Z, it shows up as 1600, but it's only one side of the DIMM. So, but you got two sides of the DIMM, makes it 3200. So, it's only showing one side of the DIMM. It has two-sided DIMMs. So, Jerry, give it a chance. Move it up to 3000 megahertz on the Infinity Fabric. Leave everything else alone, and see where it's gonna level out to right from there. And that'll actually bring your memory up to the max specs of you know the manufacturer's max specs. I'm pushing mine at the manufacturer's max specs, but I'm running 64 gigs of RAM too. Does it make a difference running 64 or 32? A little bit. Not much. I'm using 4 channels. So, okay, we'll have a peek. Yes, I wear glasses. I got to look closer. Yeah, don't worry about messing with any of those timings. Just leave it alone. Yeah, those timings right there, I'd just leave it alone. If it's running fine the way it is right now, I wouldn't mess with the timings. I would leave it just as it is and let the computer automatically set the timing for, the individual parameters for your timing. I don't mess with that unless you're into tweaking it really closely and really carefully, narrowing it down. Then that's a different story. But if you're not into narrowing it down and you don't have, don't know exactly which ones to work with or anything else, you can wind up, over scoring your memory, and kind of, you could trash your memory if you're not careful in that area. But as far as, setting the memory timing and the infinity fabric, that's not going to tear up on it. Because if you overclock or overset it and it crashes, the motherboard should revert it back to the original setting. It should clock it back to the original setting. So, did I get all that in there, Dakota?
I believe so. I'm an Intel fanboy, so I don't. This AMD stuff is wacky.
Okay.
Like when I want to mess around my RAM, it's enabling XMP.
Okay, Jerry. Well, give it a chance and see how it runs just the way it is. Yeah, I seen that. I seen the pictures. I had a peek. So, you know, if you're not crashing, right? Even if you open up YouTube and you're not crashing, then you should be okay. Motherboard has CPU and DRAM lights on. What do you mean? Motherboard has CPU and DRAM lights on and won't boot now.
All right, it might not like your timing config. Let it set, and it should restart itself if that's the case.
Yeah. And
And why Intel and not AMD? Just wondering.
that's your question.
Yeah. I prefer Intel because it just seems to be easier to work with. I've built many computers with AMD and for people, and it seems to be the ones that I get asked questions and need to help with more often, whereas my Intel systems just seem to work. And that's GPU or CPU. Like I personally, I'm using an RTX 3090 right now in my own personal rig, but I got a what was it, a 5700 or a 5700 XT sitting in a secondary computer. Like I'm willing to use AMD. I just overall personally I prefer Intel and nvidia. Hey, no problem.
Me, I'm kind of a AMD kind of guy. I've been running AMD a lot longer than Intel, so
AMD makes so much sense. Okay, I didn't mess with the timing configs, although I left it alone. Okay. Well, if your RAM's 6,000 megahertz, and that's what you're trying to get it to run at 6,000 megahertz, it should work.
Unless you got a bad stick, then that would cause it to lock up.
Well, if your computer hasn't restarted itself yet, turn it off and turn it back on. It'll boot into a safe mode.
Yeah.
And then just reset your BIOS, and then try turning your computer off and on again and seeing if it works.
Make sure when you reset the BIOS, if you take out the little battery, make sure you unplug the computer first.
No, I meant like just go to the settings and load optimize defaults.
No, if you can't get the BIOS to run, then if you're stuck into that BIOS thing, then basically you want to unplug your computer, take out the battery, and then wait 10 seconds, then put the battery back in, plug your computer back in, and then restart it.
It was running 6400 on Expo. See, I don't know enough. I don't even know what Expo is. I don't know enough about it. That's why I'm not commenting on this. All I can say is to restart it, and the BIOS should take you. It should boot into a safe mode, and it should let you do your adjustments.
If it was running 6400 on Expo, then it should allow you to manually set the well, that comes back to the same thing that we were talking about. Then unplug it, take out both RAM sticks, reseat your RAM sticks, and see if it should come back on. Now, it could be a seating issue with your RAM sticks, even though that you might not have took them out or whatever. If you take them out and you reseat your RAM, it should reseat your BIOS. It should recycle your BIOS.
If I remember correctly, the NZXT motherboards had a terrible time with RAM. What was this motherboard again?
It's the 650E.
It's the NZXT.
Yeah, it's the NZXT 650E. Then there's got to be a problem with if it was running before and it was running Expo at 6400 megahertz, and then you turn off Expo and you run it at 6000 megahertz, it should never affect the RAM or the processor or anything else, unless you got something that's affecting the motherboard itself. Okay, if you pull out both RAM sticks and just put in one and see if the RAM stick, the one in a different slot, and check your slots and go down the road, check all four of them to make sure, with the one RAM stick, if it works or not. If you're not getting any response from that, then take the other RAM stick and then go all the way down each slot and see if it's, going to boot up from that. And if it does, then you got a bad RAM stick.
So what does the Expo thing do that you told them to adjust? What does that do?
It's like if it's an Asus motherboard, it's DOCP on crack.
What is that?
Basically, it does the same thing DOCP does. XMP, the boost, basically boosting your RAM to its max. Okay, basically it takes your RAM to its max, and it allows a better fluctuation and flow through. But for some reason, with some processors, okay, that Expo is overheating the processors.
I've heard it can take a while for the memory to train on your first post. Have you let it sit for a while when you power on the PC? Okay, this is an issue I had when I built my computer using the Z790 NZXT motherboard.
But usually
I didn't think it was going to turn on. Well, I'm just explaining something to him. He's saying it's not posting right now.
Right.
My computer took like a solid 2 minutes before it posted for the first time. So maybe with him clearing, loading optimized defaults in the BIOS, maybe it cleared his RAM and it's retraining his memory again. It might take a minute or two to just reseated the RAM, but nothing. Wait for a little bit, man. Let it set for a couple minutes. I had the same. I had not this because I didn't adjust anything on my BIOS. I just hell, I don't even think I have XMP enabled on this PC. And I'm only using 6,000 megahertz RAM.
Yeah, sometimes with some motherboards, what they do is when you change the memory timing, okay, sometimes it goes into what it calls a boot loop effect. Now, sometimes it won't. It'll stay stuck on RAM. You know, with some motherboards, it'll stay right on the RAM and it boot loops, and then it'll go forward and go, you know, to your graphics card and so on, and then go to the end. Sometimes it takes 1 or 2 minutes for it to go through. There are some people now. I've heard this from a couple other friends of mine. They said with the 7800X3D, now they had to wait like, what were they telling me? They had to wait like close to 4 to 5 minutes for something to happen.
Yes, do that. Give it a shot. I think he might have a reset CMOS battery on his motherboard.
It's been sitting for a while, but nothing. Okay.
It could take a while. Like I said, it took my computer a couple minutes before, and that was me not touching it or anything, just letting it sit there. I'm going to go to their website and check out RAM compatibility.
6400, you know, that 650, the 650E should be able to handle all the way up to what did it say, the 64 or 66? Was it 64 or 68? I wasn't sure.
DIMM slots, DDR5 only. Max memory supports 128 gigs. Memory architecture, dual channel. OC frequency, DDR5. Non-ECC, unbuffered memory up to 6,000 plus. Overclocked. Please refer to Memory QVL on NCXT's website for more information.
Yeah, you got to go by the QVL list. Huh.
This is why I don't goof around in my BIOS. Extended profiles for overclocking. Expo exported. Oh, Expo is extreme memory profile.
Trident Evo DDR5 should be fine. That RAM that he's got should be fine, man. That doesn't make sense.
64,000 megahertz? 6,400, I bet.
It's supposed to be 60. It's supposed to be 6,400 mega transfers. But, you know, megahertz, mega transfers, you know, everybody says it in their own unique way. So,
how does MHZ translate to mega transfers?
well, you got to understand, back years ago, between the 90s and 2000 and actually 2021, they were saying it's in megahertz, but then everybody started questioning the fact, you know. We know what you meant, Jerry. It's all good. But, and you know, I've heard of this before, but I've never had that. I've still never had that kind of problem with the motherboard. You know, to where if you change the timings, that it actually the motherboard stops working. I have never ever heard of that. That has got to be a new one on me. You know. How old is the system?
It's obviously not super old if it's rocking DDR5.
Well, no, if it's like 6 months old or, 8 months old, or if they did a recall on the motherboard, you know, could be a problem with the VRMs on the motherboard that's causing the RAM not to initialize. You know,
There's a Reddit here. I found a fix for AM5 users having Expo profile on, refusing to boot into BIOS or Windows.
okay. So
Interesting.
somebody found a problem with it.
Update. Okay, I think I found the root of the whole PC not booting while having Expo profile on the latest BIOS. Not for this isn't the exact same motherboard, but they're having the same problem. Update 3/27/23. Hours of investigation in the Asus BIOS. I have found after days of testing, the root problem was there are two memory context restore in the BIOS that cause major instability with Expo profile. You got to enable not one memory context, or got to enable not one memory context restore in AI tweak, but the second one as well in advanced AMD CBS DDR options, DDR memory features, or else you get a blue screen of death or DRAM orange light errors. Is it freezing on? Is it freezing on the orange on RAM?
It must be because it's on between the
I'm gonna assume
RAM
that's,
and the processor.
yeah. I'm going to assume it's CPU and then RAM and then whatever the other two LEDs are. Uh,
But that is just weird. I mean, to have your that should and that motherboard should never do
well, they just said it's an issue. According to that Reddit, it's a problem. It's an issue with the way the BIOSes are designed. How to reset BIOS without post.
unless that motherboard's got BIOS flashback. You know, which I definitely all my motherboards got BIOS flashback for that simple fact, or it's got it's got the twin BIOS where it's got two BIOSes as a backup. You know, but that's just crazy. These motherboards, that must be a reason why I stayed with Asus.
I gotta look. I need to look at the IO on this. Is there a reset? Hey, uh, uh, Jerry, on the back of your motherboard, right next to the Wi-Fi antennas, you got two buttons. You got a clear CMOS and a BIOS something. I
BIOS
can't zoom up
flashback.
and look at it. The flashback's probably the bottom one. It looks like an FL. Press. Okay, so turn your computer off completely.
Do not press BIOS flashback unless you have updated BIOS that's on an SD card that you got plugged into that port. Now, if you press that BIOS flashback without that SD card, that the BIOS update card in there, you could wind up wiping out your BIOS.
No, you want to hit the clear CMOS button. It's the one at the top.
Yeah, you don't want to hit BIOS flashback.
Yeah.
Not unless you're gonna be upgrading or updating your BIOS. Okay. I just pray to God, my brother, you didn't press the wrong button. I just pray to God you didn't press the wrong button.
It won't do anything if there's nothing loaded.
Some I've heard that
Not a modern motherboard.
well, I can tell you somebody that pushed the BIOS flashback button and erased his BIOS and didn't know how he did it. It was a glitch.
I've never heard of that, but I can guarantee it can happen.
Anything could happen when it comes to computer parts.
It should be fine.
Usually, if it's
Okay.
stuck in between CPU and DRAM, then that means there's a problem with
Yes. Clear the CMOS when the computer's off. Yep. That's what you do. Push that
when
button,
it's
you should be
off.
fine.
I always
thought-
unplug the power cord from the computer before I do that. I always have that habit for a good reason.
Yeah, it's not bad.
Because of the static negative charge that goes through the line still, that that's not supposed to be there, that everybody talks about in your power supply, kind of thing.
And to your buddy who messed up his BIOS, from what I read here, people who hit the flashback button without a USB installed and then the computer doesn't post, they just have to press clear CMOS.
Yeah, well,
because it's trying to load into a new BIOS, and as soon as you hit that clear CMOS, it forgets that it's trying to load into a new BIOS and loads off the old one.
Yeah, that's
yeah. So it should be fine. I don't know why I was thinking not BIOS flashback, but BIOS reset.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wrong R word. Got it backwards. That's all.
If it's still not posting on,
I'll be right back.
All right, hurry back, man. If it's still not posting, then it's going to come that you're going to probably end up having to do a BIOS flashback and get the most updated BIOS for the motherboard, put it on and get it all set up and put it onto an SD card, and then plug it into the port that's for the BIOS flashbacking. It should give you a specific port, and then make sure your computer's plugged in but not turned on. Well, at least it's got the power going to the motherboard, but so that way when you hit BIOS flashback and you see a green light, wait for it to finish. Do not turn off the computer. Don't do anything. Wait until it completely finishes going through the BIOS update, and then after that, try and unplug it for 30 seconds. Oh, there you go. There you go. Congrats, you're back online. Well, at least it worked. Yay. Kudos, man. But still, for it to lock up like that, that's still telling me, at least you get a plus. Then you can put everything back the way you had it. So that way, it's all
Yay.
good.
I helped. I think when he said earlier about the reset, I think I think he was referring to the power and reset buttons on the motherboard.
Oh yeah, in the front.
Yeah, which all that does is just turn the computer on and off.
Yeah.
Yeah, reset BIOS. Awesome. I'm glad that worked.
Well, at least you know next time how to reset it. There you go. You got it.
And this is actually a good learning thing too. If you ever mess anything up in your BIOS and your computer doesn't post, clear CMOS. Now there's a lot of modern motherboards have those buttons on the IO shield on the back of the computer. Some have the buttons on the motherboard itself. You gotta like hunch it down, and a lot of times motherboards don't even have those buttons, and you actually have to take like a butter knife or something and pop the CMOS battery out, let it set for a little bit, and then pop the battery back in
Oh
when the
yeah.
computer's off
Yeah, and unplugged.
and unplugged.
Anytime you go to change any hardware in your computer, you make sure you unplug the computer and do yourself a favor and try not to blow it up. Because
Hey man,
even though that the computer is turned off, that power supply still keeps that motherboard live until you unplug it from the back, from the wall.
and
It stays live.
Jerry, if I were you, I would just do a bit more research into your RAM,
And your
uh,
motherboard.
and to make sure because NZXT is known for having issues with RAM compatibility. Like, heck, they had to update the BIOS on my motherboard in order to even let me use 4 sticks of RAM. It only recognized 2.
Well, that's happening with most new motherboards now these days, I
Well,
hear. Ooh.
you just gotta look into it.
I know I had to
That's
update
all I
my
can say.
BIOS. I know I had to update my BIOS on this DDR4 one.
In order to get your RAM to work correctly.
Yeah.
See, this is my issue. No offense to AMD users. I understand why people use it. I've never had this problem with an Intel setup.
I
I
have.
plug it in and my RAM works.
I have.
Oh, and I know people have. Like I just said, my motherboard, people have had to update the BIOS in order to get all 4 sticks of RAM to work.
Yeah.
It didn't. There at one point there was a BIOS that would only let you use 2 sticks of RAM.
Yeah,
So
at one time until they did the updates.
and then they had to update it.
Right.
But that's the first time I've heard of that something like that in a long time
Yeah.
for Intel.
Well, it's just crazy.
And I'm not hating. Like at the latest BIOS, I've just been researching and that there's nothing posted on their official website, only external links. I'd rather not update. Understandable. Updating a BIOS can be very sketchy. NZXT.
Yeah, it could be sketchy, but the thing is this: if it's not a bias that's been out there for at least 2 to 3 to 4 months, before you go up to everybody makes the craziest mistake is they take it instead of going, they take it, let's say this is bias 3002 and then they got 3004, then they get 6 months later they got 3012. Everybody goes from 3004 to 3012, and they missed every one of going up those steps, because there's different unlockings that those biases do. Some motherboards, you can do that with, because like with Asus, they bundle it all in one package. When they update the BIOS to a higher number, they take the most recent and bundle it in a package and go up to the next level. Some motherboard companies don't do that. They want you to go from one BIOS to the next BIOS and the next BIOS. So some people make the biggest jump from one, from going from, you know, first day you're back on, updating the BIOS to like 6 months later. You got a 6 month span of BIOSes that you have to update with. Some got, to where if you got like these how do you say that? You know, beta programs. You don't want to deal with beta BIOSes. That's the worst thing to deal with. It's so buggy. It's sick. You know. So when you look at your BIOS, you want to be able to have the most decent BIOS with what your motherboard's running. Okay. If there's an update for Windows 11 in your BIOS, then and it's certified by Microsoft. It has to be certified by Microsoft and certified by your motherboard manufacturer. So, but if it's a beta BIOS and it's not certified by Microsoft, I would never touch it. And that's my opinion. I'd never touch it. Yeah, but make sure that it's not a beta BIOS. That's what you don't want to put in your system. But if you're not,
I think
if he's not close to the current BIOS, the current updated BIOS, then that could be giving you instability problems. So,
all right, and I think I found a YouTube video here that'll help him. Oh, and I just lost it.
well, just
You know
send
what?
him, just send him the link in Discord.
I did, and I tagged him in it.
Yeah. Okay.
But I want to send him a video to show him how to update a BIOS, so that way he has everything he needs. Because updating a BIOS is sketchy. You mess it up, you're going to break your computer.
Yeah, you're gonna brick. You're gonna have a 4-pound brick sitting on your table.
And it's not covered by warranty either.
Well, now understand, by bricking your computer, you're not bricking everything. You're just bricking the motherboard.
Just the motherboard.
Just the motherboard.
And your Windows activation key.
And your Windows activation key. But if you
right.
now there's a trick 22 to this. If you get the same motherboard, if let's say you brick your motherboard and you get the same exact motherboard, actually your Windows activation key does not change.
I heard it did, because each motherboard has its own unique ID.
Yeah, but that's when you make a copy of your identifiers for your current motherboard while your computer's still running fine, and then you put it into a folder so that way you have the identifiers to put back into your registry so you can use your keys. Well, it's tricky, but you can do it. All right, Arkeem, have a good night. Sleep well. Thanks for hanging out with us.
I didn't even realize Arkeem was in the chat.
Drivers as in what? The BIOS drivers? Or the processor drivers?
The driver right there states that it's a BIOS update.
Yeah.
Man, I was hoping to find one for his exact motherboard, like a video on YouTube, and I am not seeing anything.
You're not really going to see much on NZXT. Not many people. Not many people mess with the BIOS in NZXT.
Updating their BIOS is pretty common, though.
Not necessarily true. Not in NZXT. That's what I'm trying to tell you. If it's
Well, why
Asus,
do you say that?
if it's an Asus, or if it's MSI, or if it's Gigabyte, yeah, you're gonna find those. Not so much on Gigabyte, but some. But usually MSI and Asus are the two BIOSes everybody goes for.
It's just a bunch of videos of people talking about how gorgeous the motherboard is. Like, I agree, but I want a BIOS update tutorial.
Jerry, when it comes to your BIOS for your motherboard, understand this. If your motherboard is that finicky with the Infinity fabric of you upscaling the Infinity fabric, something tells me the motherboard is going to be finicky when you go to update the BIOS. And that's where I'm having a bad feeling about a negative here with that motherboard. You know what I mean, Dakota?
Not particularly, because his issues you might be having could be caused by the fact that his BIOS is so out of date.
Yeah, but his BIOS, even if his BIOS is out of date, he's still able to access his. But my thing is that if he goes and updates, and I've seen somebody update their BIOS and they get into that pickle, like Jay's 2 cents.
What pickle? What are you talking about?
He updated a BIOS on one of his motherboards and bricked it.
Okay, he probably did something wrong then.
Yeah, he's supposed to be, got a lot of followers, kind of things. Come on, man. How are you gonna brick your motherboard?
It happens to people all the time.
Yeah, especially if it's got one of those weak chips for a BIOS. But if you go to update your BIOS, it's best to follow.
And I don't know, Jerry, about your other drivers being up to date or not. Again, I feel like this is an AMD thing that I'm just not used to. Like, AMD chipset software driver?
No.
Like, would that be pre-installed on his motherboard, or is that something he has to update himself? I feel like that's something he's gonna have to update himself, isn't it?
He can either get it from the AMD site to where he can, if he's updating just the, in the device manager, updating all your features, like for your internet, for your 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 apparels and stuff like that, all that little stuff. You're talking about.
Doesn't
You're
actually.
It's a software update.
I'm being dumb here. Doesn't Windows automatically update your chipset drivers?
Yeah, the shit drivers.
They're shit ones?
They are shitty. They are so out of date. They were back in 2019, man.
Okay, well, I mean,
when Windows,
again, I don't goof around with AMD that often, so I don't know a lot of this stuff.
When you install Windows into your computer, all those drivers in your device manager, the highest one you might have is from 2020. The lowest you might have is up from 2016.
I guess Intel has chipset software and drivers too.
Yeah, they do. That they do. But there's I tend to follow more Microsoft with.
So you follow Microsoft for Intel, but not for AMD?
Not for AMD now.
Okay. I guess that's why I don't really hear people talking about Intel chipset drivers that often because they exist.
Yeah, but usually Microsoft follows more of a pattern for Intel than they do AMD. AMD follows more of an architecture that Microsoft doesn't really want to keep updated and everything else. So, you know, but if you want to, update your BIOS for your motherboard, then it's best to do it through the motherboard manufacturer. And get the latest BIOS, and basically BIOS flashbacks all the same, man. When it comes to AMD, BIOS flashbacks all the same. You can do it of two ways. One,
I was gonna say, I just went and checked out my version of the motherboard on NZXT's website, and they don't even have Intel chipset drivers for it. Well, there's an Intel ME driver.
no,
Oh
don't
yeah,
touch.
oh wait, yep.
Don't even use that.
There is an Intel chipset driver. It's just up. It's in a really different spot than it is for the AMD one.
Yeah, those ME things, don't use that. Oh my God, you're gonna kill your stuff.
What is that?
That's something you really don't want to mess with, because I did, and I almost lost my whole motherboard over the fact of the ME version. You don't want to mess with that. Trust me. Okay. Now, the processor drivers, the motherboard, you got two sets of drivers for two basic principal set of drivers for your motherboard. You got one for the processor, and you got one for the BIOS. Okay, they're two separate animals. First of all, you would have to do a BIOS flashback, which in the BIOS itself has a BIOS updater in there. If you just got it should give you an instruction of how to go about updating your BIOS. I know Asus does, but I'm not sure about NZXT. That's one thing. Okay. Now, basic principle is that you download the latest motherboard BIOS from the manufacturer website. Then you download it to your desktop, and then after that you turn around and you follow it'll have an instruction sheet on if you got to do what they call a converter. Basically, they give you two files. One, you got to convert the actual file over, like Asus does. Asus has it's a name converter. So it changes the name, and then after you change the name of the BIOS that you downloaded, then you take and you move it to your SD card.
Yeah.
Okay. And then you plug that into your computer, and then through the BIOS, you can update your BIOS through, you can update your BIOS in the BIOS. That's one way.
All right. As much as I'd like to stay in chat, I'm gonna have to dip here.
Oh, okay, man. Well, we'll catch you later then. I'm gonna stay on for about 13 more minutes, and then I'm probably gonna get up out of here too. So,
All right, Jerry. Do a lot of research, man. Do a lot of research. Watch a lot of videos. Look for specific articles about your motherboard, your BIOS. I know AMD is really funky. Like, I know I had a person that I got a computer from who he updated the BIOS to a BIOS that supported a CPU that wasn't his, and he like bricked it. So just be careful. Do your research. Really dig into it.
do your homework.
Because I don't know enough. I don't know enough about AMD to be able to offer with sound. Yeah, I couldn't do that.
Well, me, I deal with AMD all the time, so it makes it
Yep.
easier for me.
Yep. You're the guy to talk to, not me. All
All
right.
right. You
Y'all have a
have
good night.
you have a good night too, man. We'll see you next time.
Yep.
All righty, everybody. Boop. There. All right. Now, I'm going to wind it down a little bit myself. I just want to get a little bit more chit chat in because I was trying to keep this going until about 6 p.m. I don't, my time. That's about maybe 11, 12 minutes away. So, far as with, like I said to everybody, when it comes to your bias and AMD, it's not a hard thing. Yeah. Well, Jerry, understand this. We all have that same headache when it comes to a build. We have that same headache. Everybody has that same headache. I have had that same headache with this motherboard and the motherboard I had before and the motherboard I had over there. It's always the same battle. Look at the new 3050 real quick. Okay, I will do so. Let me disconnect that. I will look at the 3050 real quick. Well, where'd you put the 3050? Oh, there it is. Okay. So we're looking at the 3050. It's got 14 gigabytes per second, which is, and it's 128 bit, 130 watts. It's got 224 gigabits per second, and it's $250 USD. Okay, and the tensor cores are 80, RT cores are 20, and it's 2560. For 250 bucks, I would not even sneeze at that. I would not even go near that. No. I mean, that's like asking yourself I wanted one half of an RTX 4070. That's basically what that looks like is one half of an RTX 4070. Yeah, I'm looking at the Discord. Well, with the 107 die? Is that what it says? That says the 106. Oh, okay. Okay, my bad. My bad. My bad. Still, it's got the same amount of cores. Still got the same amount of RT cores. Still has the same amount of tensor. It's still the same amount of memory. Um, Memory clock still the same. Everything's the same. Is that right? There's something wrong with that picture. Yeah, truthfully, it doesn't make sense. All right, well, everybody's wondering what we're talking about. Let's go ahead and just flip over there real quick, and I'll get my face out of the way. Let me move things around a little bit. So this way I can get my face out of the way. Okay, so I mean, there. We'll move things around a little bit. Everybody, just be patient with me for now. Okay, now what the? I can't. I can't see. Oh, now look at the TGP, the power. They're going from 130 watts to 115. That's it. If I'm reading that right, it's going from 130 watts to 115. The TGP, the TBP, it's going from 130 watts to 115. So it's dropping off 15 watts. Why? That don't make sense, man. To me, it doesn't make sense. I don't know where they come up with that, but that's crazy. That's crazy. Yeah, I think what they're trying to do is they're trying to find a reduction in power. But when they reduce the power, same as the 4060. Oh, I doubt that. Huh. Unless they're trying to reduce the power. Well, if it had more cache, it would take more power consumption. They wouldn't reduce power consumption if they had more cache. As far as wattage, not as far as the voltage. Now, as far as the voltage, you could drop the volts and still have a decent amount of wattage that you have for your usage. But that means they would have to drop frequency. They would have to drop the frequency first. That, and they would have to drop a lot of things to have that extra cache on there. But I really don't see the 3050 being actual value. Especially if you're gaming with the newer games, that means you would have to reduce a lot on the display settings for each one of the games in order to get that to run correctly. I mean, well, yeah, the 4060 has 115. Yeah. But also, too, isn't the 4060 PCIe 4.0 X8? And the 3050 is PCIe 4.0 X8? I think so. So now with them not having a full 16 lanes, they're not going to have as much power consumption that they need to run those cards. Oh, you just, well, my opinion is this: the 4060, the 3050 is out of the question. I would never recommend that card to anybody. Between the 6500 XT and the 3050, I would not recommend either one of those. Not recommend them. Now, as far as the 4060, if you're going to run it for a kid's computer, like somebody that's under the age of 14, to put on, for a 4060 to build them like a little computer, starter computer, that's fine. But as far as with an adult computer, no. I would stay right up at between the 4060 Ti 16 gigabytes or higher. That would be my impression. Well, your 7600 should handle rasterization just fine. Depends on what games you play. Now, do remember, when you set up your computer, you're setting your computer up for your usage, not for the world usage. Okay? So if you play like 3 games on your computer and you play them all the time and it's pure rasterization, then AMD is the best way to go when it comes to graphics cards. Now, if you are heavy into ray tracing and stuff like that, then nvidia is the way to go. So you have to balance it in between. Do you want more rasterization or do you want more ray tracing? You have to balance it out like that. Or you want CUDA core, compared to doing the rasterization. Where you got a game that requires a lot of CUDA core, then, NVIDIA is the best way to go for that. You can't really expect a game to run great with it requiring more CUDA cores on an AMD graphics card. Won't work. You'll run like a dinosaur. So basically, what games you play that you really enjoy and everything else, and for futuristic ups, you want to be able to have a card that runs your specific games. Not just buy a card just because they say it's great. I can tell you the 4070 is the best card in the world. Okay, I'm not saying it is or it isn't, but somebody can preach to you and tell you it's the best card in the world, and turn around when you hook it up for your gameplay and to play your games, and you try to get what everybody else is getting off of it, and you don't get there. Guess what happens? You get upset because you didn't get the right piece. You get like what they call bad advice. I'm not gonna give you, because I don't know what games you play or anything else, but with the kind of system that you got, and understand this, with the kind of system that you have an AM5 series system. You can run basically anything from the 6000 series up. You can run anything from the 40 series up off of that motherboard, you know, as long as you have the power supply. That's the trick. If you got 1,000 watt power supply, you can run basically a 4090 off of it. So, right. Well, okay. In 1440p, any nvidia card, that's you know, I don't really like recommending the late 30 series anymore of NVIDIA cards because it's only going to bring you up to DLSS 2. And we're at DLSS 3.5. You can use 3.5 with some of the later model 30 series graphics cards. But I still, I like to keep around the 40 series myself. And like I told you, my best recommendation I could say, and my worst recommendation on NVIDIA side is the 4060 Ti 16 gigabytes. The best is the 4090. So in between that mark and that mark is the best thing to go. Okay. But as long as you got the power supply, you got the motherboard, the processor, the RAM, and the SSD, you should not have a problem running whatever you want on your system when it comes to gaming, you know, especially at 1440p. I hear a couple reviewers having some good luck at 1440p on the 4060 Ti 16 gigabytes. I hear it. I do, watch a few reviewers for the simple fact to see, what kind of luck they're having. Some of them are having pretty good luck on the 16 gigabyte one. So, but that's just what I seen with my eyes. I plan to replace my PSU, then wait for the Super to come out, go from there. Oh, okay. Well, you better be looking pretty hard because in January they're talking about in January bringing it out as well. After CES, they're thinking about a week after they're thinking about bringing out the Super Series. So it's coming sooner than you think. If you didn't know that, you do now. It's going to be coming sooner than you think. I think after January the 8th. So January the 8th is going to be CES. And after that, maybe a week after that, because they got to at least give it a week after they announce it. They got to give it a week because reviewers get what they call sample cards and they do the reviewing and everything else and they put it out there before it's NVIDIA distributes has able for it to go on sale, hopefully this time. But they didn't do that with the 4060 Ti 16 gigabyte. They didn't do that. So pricing should change a little. Well, we're hoping the price comes down a whole lot. That's what everybody's hoping for. We'll wait for the reviews on the supercard. Truthfully, I would before you decide to buy. Oh, I'm sorry. I look like I'm sitting down there at the bottom of the bush. Oh my God, you guys are sitting there looking at me, and it's like I'm sitting down there at the bottom of the bush. Sorry, I forgot to move my camera. Okay. I would, and I'm gonna be honest with you, I would wait for the reviews on the Super Series. And this goes out to everybody. I want you wait for the reviews, find out what they're about, find out if they're going to be viable enough or not. If not, I would wait to go to the 50 series. So that's something to think about too. The Blackwell series, NVIDIA does have the Blackwell series coming out, but there's something that kind of troubles me about the Blackwell series. Something that they did on the Polaris series. When it comes to the BIOS, how they set up the BIOS, the BIOS connections that they did weren't too stable, I think. I'm sitting on my 4070. I'm gonna be honest with you, machine. I'm sitting on my 4070 for 5 years because until I start to see, and I'm a shill when it comes to knowing that I got a great CPU or not, or GPU or not. I like, if I buy something, I like to sit on it for at least 5 years. The 4070, I'll tell you when I'm approaching the 1 year mark. Um, I'm getting close to it. So in 1 year time, I'm going to benchmark it so everybody sees from the first day I benchmarked it to the 1 year later mark to see if there's any change whatsoever. If the card got better or it got worse. That's how I'm going to benchmark mine. So you'll see if it got better or if it got worse. Well, if you get the the 4070 is for 549. It comes with Alan Wake 2, which that's a $50 or $60 game. So if you actually look at it, you're getting the GPU for less than 500 bucks. The hardware itself you're getting for less than 500 bucks. You're getting a piece of software for 50 or 60. So basically you knock that off of it, you're getting it for less than 500 bucks. So if you look at it that way, less than 500 bucks is still not a bad deal. Especially when you get a free game with it. And if you do the numbers, software costs 50 to 60 bucks, the hardware costs, it's a no-brainer to me. But a lot of people say, well, I don't know about the 4070 now. I got the 4070 and I can't get it up to the numbers you got it up to. That's what some people are telling me. Well, you got what they call bugs and fixes in your software. Depends on what kind of software you run. And, nobody's going to be able to run it exactly the same every time when it comes to, trying to mimic another person's hardware and software. It's never going to run the same. Never. It could run better or it could run worse. You don't know. So, oh, not interested in the Alan Wake game? Too slow for you? Well, all right. Well, look, you know what you could do is you get the Alan Wake codes and then you turn around and you say, hey, you want to buy them, sell them to a friend for 50 bucks, and get you 50 bucks back. That's up to you. Unless you can get the card for less than 500 bucks without Alan Wake, then you won't have to go through that hassle. But if you want to buy it for 549 or you get it for 539, and still get Alan Wake, then, tell your friend, hey, give me 50 bucks for the game. Yeah. And that way your hardware will actually cost less than $500. Simple. I know when I got mine, with all the deals and stuff that I did on mine from Amazon, I got mine for way less than 500 bucks. So it is MSRP at 600 bucks. So yeah, well, 512 bucks is not bad. you know, well, 515. It's still not bad. Not unless you get it, not unless you got like a rebate. You get on a rebate deal. Remember, if you can get a rebate deal on top of that deal, you know, that's a good deal. Some people can do that. They can stack deals. I know I do. So, it's something. So, always look if you can get $100 knocked off of the card, then you're doing something. Or, or this is another thing too. This is another thing too. I want you to keep this in mind. There are what they call from these retail stores, you can get what they call an open box deal. And, usually they check it out before they sell it to you on an open box. So, usually in the retail stores, they got to make sure everything's in the box. And if not, they got to specify it not being in the box. So, always look at open box deals as well. Keep that in mind. So, if you get one in on an open, I know a lot of people got 4090s on an open box deal. 4090s. And they got a hell of a deal. Especially when, you knock off like a couple $100 from it, that makes the biggest difference in the world. Best Buy has that. I think Micro Center has that too. Yeah, Micro Center has that too. Oh, you're welcome. No problem. Anytime. Anytime. Anytime at all. Um, but anyway, I definitely went 15 minutes over like usual. You guys know me. I've been trying to hold my coughs in so you guys don't hear me coughing. I'm still a little bit sick. I'm still haven't got totally to 100% yet. But at least, me and Dakota got out here today and we did the Saturday, the Saturday night podcast with everybody. No holds barred as usual. So, but anyway, I'm going to go ahead and jump out. And I want to say thank you for everybody that has subscribed to the channel. Welcome to the family. Welcome to JJPB Builds. And my veteran subscribers, as always, much love to you for helping support the channel and all that you do, the advice, telling your friends to come out and subscribe, watching all the videos from beginning to end and helping the channel grow. That's what we're doing now is we're trying to make this channel grow. Well, thank you, Machine. You're awesome as well. Just keep that in mind. So, but y'all don't forget, if this is your first time here, do please subscribe. Or also to thumbs up. If you give a positive thumbs up, it helps YouTube get us out there as well. So until the next time, and I mean the next time in the next video, this is JJ on JJ's PC Builds. We will see you all next week, Saturday, 4 p.m., which I'll see you guys sooner on a video. So stay tuned and have a nice night.